Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Campfire Conversations, where we have quick leadership conversations that are guaranteed to lead to transformation. See, campsites sit between a valley and a peak, where you spend time reflecting and getting prepared for your next climb. We want to share stories of real-life hardships and perseverance. We want to answer the questions that you send in to the podcast. So let's get started. Today, I've got a friend, Chris Robinson, that came to my office and did a keynote for about 100 people. And what we've done is we've pulled some clips from his presentation. We want to play them for you. And then Brad and I are going to break them down and maybe challenge you to learn a little and do a little. So let's get started. Brad, so glad you're here, buddy. You were in the room, right?
Yeah. I was in the room for Chris Robinson at the annual planning, and he's a pretty special dude. And we were preparing for this and got a chance to kind of go back through it, and I was reminded just how on the nose some of these insights are. Man,
yeah, he's seen a lot of life. He's on the shoulders of John Maxwell. He's in front of him constantly. He's always got a question ready. John is his mentor. But he's been able to curate it for this generation, right? So John and Chris are about a 30-year age gap. And so while John's information is timeless, Chris has a way to energize the crowd. He's funny. I mean, he's really funny, but practical. He can relate. He's walked through the trenches, and he's about to share some vulnerable stories of what got him to where he is today. And so we could pull up a clip and let's just dive right in. The first one I have is complacency. He wants to define it. He made a book called Drift to Drive. He wrote a book, Drift to Drive, and when he talks about it, I want you to think about where complacency might be showing up. And so we'll go ahead and play his clip, and then we'll break it down and go into the next one.
All right, sounds good.
The greatest threat to your business this year is not failure. The greatest threat to your business this year is complacency. We thought that complacency came from a place of laziness, but in fact, complacency comes from a place of victory. The Japanese have a term for it called sensu. And sensu is a term that they translate to victory disease. And what victory disease is that where you begin to lose because of arrogance or confidence in what you thought works over a series of victories. We looked at governments, we looked at businesses, and complacency often happens from success, not from laziness. And so what I did is I redefined complacency as a secret place of satisfactory success. A secret place of satisfactory success. Where are you busy in your life, but you're not challenged? Where do you say later more than now? Where are you consuming more than you're creating? So don't think that you can just keep doing the same things over and over again. And now that I've got some coaching, now that I've gone to this event, maybe things will change. No, nothing's going to change until you change.
What Chris a statement. Nothing is going to change.
Chris and I were talking, and I said, Chris, that book's not for me. This is right at the beginning. I'm not a complacent person. I'm a hard driver. He said, are you sure about that? And I said, well, okay, let's go. And he said, what's your goal this year? And I said, man, this is a couple of years ago now. The book came out. I said, 8 million. He goes, what'd you do last year? Well, 7.5. He said, why not 16? And I was like, well, and this and that. And he said, sounds like you're being complacent. And I did some math, and I wanted to share this. This is what got me thinking. A lot of times our success is our ceiling, but eventually it becomes our floor, right? So year one of Magnolia Fence and Patio, we did $1 million. That was fantastic. No complacency. Year two, we did 2 million. Well, that's a win. That's a huge growth. Year three, $1 million. Year four, $1 million. Year five, $1 million. Year six, $1 million. Year seven, $1 million. What was happening though was we went from 100% growth down to 13% growth, but we were just saying we're going $1 million a year. So we went from 100% growth to 13% growth, but bringing in the same amount of million, right? But we were wearing it like a badge. And what I found was I had gotten complacent on growing the business. And I was really frustrated on why we couldn't grow our company. Well, the people who work here have never seen it modeled. They've never seen it modeled. They've always just seen us adding $1 million, but that's not growth when it gets saturated to that large of a number. And if we did $1 million on 9 or $1 million on 10, that just keeps going down to where we actually aren't growing. And so we're on track to hit a big goal this year. We finished last year at 7 million, and we're on track to do 10.5. And if we have a bad couple weeks or a bad month, we're not going to get anywhere close to 7. We'll be way above it. And Chris will later go on to talk about how it's made up anyways. So you might as well make up a good number.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so, anyways, that's what sinks in when I hear complacency.
I think about, we were just talking about Benjamin Hardy and the 10X, 2X thing. I was just listening to the guy that was the CEO of Tesla, and he was talking a little bit about how Elon moves. And he said he's famous for firing off an email and asking for a goal that's an order of magnitude. He was like, he said, our online sales sucked. And he said, he shot an email out. Your goal is to 20X our online sales. It's like 20X. He said, but what I've learned through living with this is that when we stretch that far, what it does is it forces us to stop what we're doing and stop trying to figure out how we do a little more of that or make a small adjustment. He said, if you go for 7%, you get 3. He said, when you start thinking in terms of an order of magnitude, you think different. We get creative. We're like, what are we not seeing now? And I think, when we think about this complacency or victory disease, it's like we get in this groove and we're like, we can get a few percent better. This works. Why stop doing what works? But this is like such a challenge to like, no, how do you jump out of that and think about it in a new way?
That's so interesting because I heard the other day that when you have a goal that's 10 or 20X, you have to change. You have to change disciplines or behaviors. You have to grow before you go. But when you're only doing small incremental changes, like what we were doing, we could be the same person. And so when you, like you said, an order of magnitude, you have to change the inside first. And the next clip we've got is Chris's signature, learn a little and do a little. And I think when we do have a 10X or 20X goal, we feel like we have to just continue to consume and learn. But the best way to find something out is to put things into action. And I want to just kind of preface this. People ask me all the time, how do you motivate people? I believe action is the number one leading motivator. When you take action, you start seeing results. Or if you don't see results, there starts to be failure. You dig deep, you lean in because we have a tendency to be competitive, right? And so this is my favorite, not only clip, but moment with Chris. And I think he teed it up perfect. So we'll hit play and then we'll break this thing down.
The next step that you have to take is action. Nothing happens if you don't do anything. It doesn't matter what goal you set when you walk out of here or what it is that you want to do, it's going to require action. Some of you are getting ready like they were talking about the base camp. You like to prepare. You want to get everything right. You want to know from A to Z. Well, and now if I do this, and you want all the details, and it really doesn't work that way. Let me show you how this works. It's a 2-step process. This 2-step process is something really simple, but a lot of times we think that, well, I've got to learn everything about this before I actually go out and reach this goal, and I'm not going to do anything until I learn about this. And I get all the details, and then I get all the coaching, and then I get all the relationships, and then I get more books, and what happens is I'm no closer to this goal because I just refuse to take this step. But I'm going to split this room in half real quick. And what I want this side of the room over here to say is I want this side of the room to say, learn a little bit. Say, learn a little bit.
Learn a little bit.
And I want this side of the room to say, do a little bit.
Do a little bit.
Okay, we got this side?
Learn a little bit.
This side?
Do a little.
Okay, we got it down. We know what we're doing?
Yeah.
All right?
Learn a little. Do a little.
Okay, here we go. So when anybody sets a goal, what they want to do is, I get it. You have to be clear on this. We talked about this. I've gathered my information, right? I've filtered my information. I've got a mentor or a guide that's going to come along with me. I've got my peers that are all inside of this, and I'm still here in the same place. But if I do these 2 steps, I'll begin to move towards it. But oftentimes we do this. We just
Learn a little.
okay, that's good. But then
Learn a little bit.
and then I
Learn a little bit.
I'm in the same place. But maybe in the spring I'll just
Learn a little bit.
the time's not right now because I've got these kids, and then I just what, I'm just gonna
Learn a little bit.
I'm no closer to this goal. But if I
Get a little bit.
oh my goodness. And then I
Learn a little bit.
and now I and then now I
Learn a little bit.
and then I and then I
Learn a little bit.
and then I
Do it. Learn a little bit. Do it.
I make it to the goal. But some of you are just learning and learning and learning, and all it takes is a little doing. We have to do along the way in order to get there.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. Doing exposes your character. It exposes your competency, right? Or your capacity. And I think sometimes we fail to do because we're afraid we're going to have to go through a lot of doo-doo is what he basically said.
Yeah.
And I heard this the other day, the take 1 step forward and 2 steps back. Check this out. Sometimes when we get ready to run and jump over something, we have to back up and get a running start.
That's good.
Yeah. And so sometimes those 2 step backs are just preparing us to catapult. And so you have to do the work. And I wrote down here, I had a different story to share, but if you're familiar with EOS, there's the visionaries and the integrators, and we each individually have one or the other. And the visionary is somebody who daydreams and gets this close to an idea, but they're not very good at doing the work. Or if they are, they lose interest quickly. And so when you talk about like learn a little, the visionary could be that person. Hey, I want to learn more about where we're going, gain clarity. And then you got the integrator who's the do a little. And so if you have people on staff that are integrators that like doing the work, but you never actually do anything, you just have discussion after discussion after discussion. Maybe you even make a decision, but you don't actually do anything with it. You're draining your team. And about 75% of the workforce are more integrators than visionaries. So people want to do the work. They want to. And I want to just put a pin on that thought. When people say business owners should work on their business, not in it, think about working on your business all day, every day. You're going to never actually stick to the plan. I think that especially as an owner operator, you should maybe work on the business some, like maybe an 80-20. But I see business owners that all they do is work on the business, which is just learning and learning and learning. You've got to create time for execution and then give it time to compound. So I love to learn a little, do a little.
Yeah, I think what you shared is so wise. If a visionary is allowed to work on the business all the time, they'll just make this new decision after new decision after new decision with new idea after new idea after new idea. And they need to work in it because it stops them from maybe making those decisions. I when I hear Chris saying, and I just kind of will piggyback on that, I always think back to hearing about how Colin Powell taught decision making. And it was less than 40% of the information. You're just guessing. It's reckless. That's not what I'm talking about, reckless doing. Any more than 70%, and you're just stalling.
Yeah.
And so remembering that in this, there is a there's a road. It's a that we want to stay. We don't want to be in this ditch of just like wildly doing things that we have no idea, or learn a little, which is very easy because it's awesome. New information is a huge dopamine hit, especially for people like me and probably you. I'm guessing we're both in that boat. Huge dopamine hit. The next podcast, the next book, the next. But maybe the doing's a little more boring, especially when you have to do it over and over and over again.
It's boring because a lot of the doing is a compounding result. Like doing a little, you don't see the results until the very end, and we lose interest. I love what you said there. The 40% to the 70, there's that gap. I think the amount of preparation we have will determine our flexibility when things come across our plate. And I've been doing a lot of research on questions. And if we go into a room with clear direction and no question, are we really improving, or are we just proving what we already know? And so I think that when you try and solve something, like you said, beyond 70%, you're only solving it from one perspective. And so learn a little and do a little, and I think the do a little will expose the next step. He goes into in the next clip, in the last clip we're going to play, all about followers and what they ask. And so, we talked about complacency. Complacency happens when either you or followers lose motivation or get comfortable. And we talked about learning a little and doing a little, but you can't learn a little and do a little if you have nobody that's willing to back you up. I truly believe that if you can do it alone, it's too small. So we'll play this clip about what all followers ask out of you, because I believe that we've gotten complacent there. And I want to give you all a quick little tip to gain your followers, and then we'll see y'all next time.
All followers ask 3 questions. The first question they ask is, can I trust you? Can I trust you? The second question they ask is, can you help me? The third question that they ask is, do you care for me? All right? Can I trust you? Can you help me? Do you care for me? Now, I want you to think about your team and the people that you lead, and I want you to ask yourself, I want you to write out, sometime today, I want you to write out, hey, every single person's name that you lead. And I want you to ask yourself those questions. Does Lewis know that he can trust me? Does Lewis know that I care for him? Does Lewis know that I can help him? And if I can't get a yes to those 3 questions, then I've got some work to do. You see, think about any relationship that you've ever been in, any job that you've ever been in. If you have been violated in one of those 3 areas, you've left. Think about the relationship. Could you trust her? No. Could she help you? No. Does she care for you? No. What happened? You left. She left. Same thing with the job. Think about the job that you worked for that you quit. What happened? You were violated. Couldn't trust them. They couldn't help you. They didn't care for you. So if you want to be a more effective leader, get more out of your people, start answering yes to those 3 questions, and I promise you, your team is going to get better, and you're going to attract better people.
I think that's a great way to wrap this up, because, we've gotten so complacent in a lot of areas with connecting with people. We ask the question, how are you doing? And you say, great. You don't even answer it back with the question, how are you doing? Which is still like a level 2 answer, right? Mm-hmm. And instead, maybe ask a question like what do you really want right now? And how can I support to get you there? Like, that will lead an incredible discussion. And don't have any follow-up questions, because the follow-up question will come when you start listening. And so when I think about, can I trust you? Can you help me? And do you care for me? I think about the word listen, right? LISTEN, right? If you jump up the letters, it also creates the word silent. And so we've gotten so complacent in being silent and the willingness to listen, because we can't wait to tell our story. Or we've learned so much, and now we're ready to do when somebody else hasn't even started learning. And so we need to bring people along the journey the whole way. And so my favorite question to ask people is, how can I support you best right now? And most of the time people say, no, I've never been asked that before. I'm sorry, I've gotten complacent in my leadership. And to be honest with you, if I truly knew that person well enough, I could probably predict what they need right now. So anyways, really excited to work these clips. Brad, do you have any closing statements before I close this out?
I think all three of these really hit home. And I mean, I enjoyed watching them and sharing them and all that, but no, I don't have anything else to add. I think leaving it right there. And man, I would just encourage, I'm thinking about reflecting on those questions.
That's
Can
awesome.
they trust me? Do they know I care? Do they know that I can help them? Do they believe that I can help them?
And I hear it all the time. It was just easier when I was by myself. Well, it was easier by yourself because you didn't have this framework. Build some trust, show them how you help them, and show you how to care for them. Because remember, I mean, if you can do it alone, the dream or goal isn't big enough. If you can do it alone, the dream or goal isn't big enough. It's too small. And so I want to challenge the audience. If you have a riddle, let us know about it. Let's jump you on this podcast or tell us what you want to hear and let us go shoulder to shoulder with you because we want to grow before you go. We want to help you see clearer and further. We air every Tuesday at 6 a.m. and we'll see you soon, okay?